What's going on, guys? Ben from JK Gear and Gadgets. Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another video. Today we are installing a light bar on my Jeep Wrangler. I guess we're officially turning it into a mall crawler, as half of the internet would say, and we're going to talk about that. We are going to talk about the great things about light bars, we're going to talk about the bad things about light bars, and we're also going to talk about the stigma of light bars and mall crawlers, why half of the internet and half of the off-road community hates these things and the other half either don't care or love them. But first we have to get this installed onto my Wrangler. There are already thousands of Jeep install videos on YouTube talking about light bars. It's a very easy install, guys. We get T40 Torx bit, blast these suckers off, and throw on our new bracket. But let's take a real quick look at what I went with. So I decided to get very common stuff. All this is found on Amazon because that's what your typical Jeep owner, when they get a light bar, that's what they're gonna put on the Jeep. These are the brackets, I think from Oxmart on Amazon, and I went with a light bar from Mike Tuning. Your standard 50-inch light bar. Let's get this installed, put it on the Jeep, and start this video off. Now that we have our windshield and A-pillar bolts removed, I want to show you guys a nice upgrade. So the ones I just pulled off, as you can tell, are old, rusty, and honestly, they just looked horrible. And this was where this mod comes into play. It's fairly affordable, 30 bucks, a brand new set of fasteners from route66mods.com. Yes, it's a little expensive for bolts, but they're all freshly powder coated and they look so much better. So we have a set here, and actually let me just go show you how these look installed. So as you can tell, a nice glossy powder coated finish. They have they have satin, they have matte, they have gloss, and I think they can actually do custom colors if you ask them. But these look so much better than my old rusted bolts. Replaces all of them, and you can actually get this cowl kit too. It looks so nice. That is a small little upgrade for anybody. You know, you don't have to be installing a light bar. They look so much better, and honestly, I mean, just look at the difference. Brand new, ugly and old. With that being said, let's get these brackets, throw them on the Jeep, and bolt all this up. This is such an easy upgrade, guys. I mean, we'll talk about all this later. Is it an upgrade? Is it a downgrade? But I think the biggest reason a lot of new Jeepers throw a light bar on is because it's a very, very easy beginner project. You'll see a lot of people that have no other mods except for a light bar. And is it because it's such an easy upgrade to do? It's fairly affordable. Some people think it looks cool. Let me know in the comments below, what do you guys think about light bars? Before we dive into all like my personal pros and cons of them, I want to hear your thoughts in the comments. What do you think of light bars? Don't just go and say, oh, they're for mall crawlers. I'd actually like to hear why you don't like them. Let me know. In the meantime, I'm going to be getting these installed and put those new bolts on the Jeep. One thing I want to mention real quick, if you do decide to install a light bar, make sure you get a set of mounts that have foam padding that rest on the body. The last thing we want to do is install some light bar brackets and a year later pull them off and find out that our paint is all scratched up due to the steel bracket. So luckily this comes with a nice set of foam padding, so we don't have to worry about that. Let's get them installed. Hey, now that we have our light bar installed, what do you think? I don't know, we'll see, but we are going to continue moving on. The next step would be to wire up your light bar, either using your own wiring harness, a wiring harness that came in the kit. These are usually pretty universal. They do come with the battery terminal leads. We have a little fuse, a relay, and a very cheesy switch. I'm not going to use this. I already have an S-Tech switch pod. Made a video on that a while ago. I'll throw that video in the link below so you can see that. I'm not going to use this harness. I'm just going to tap it into my pre-wired switch system. That way tonight we can test this out and see how bright it is. The light bar is installed, everything works, and so far it looks pretty bright. We're gonna test it out tonight once it gets dark. But first, we're gonna do a little social experiment. What I'm gonna do is snap a picture of the Jeep, and we're gonna see what people online think about it. So snap a picture of the light bar, and we're gonna go over here to one of our Facebook Jeep groups, Jeep Wrangler enthusiast, and we're gonna come over here and make a post. Let's see, just installed my light bar, and we're gonna see what the internet people have to say. Whether they call me a mall crawler, whether they say it's a pointless upgrade, we're gonna do a little experiment. Just installed my light bar. What do you think? I'm gonna post this in a few different groups. That way tomorrow we can come back and see what the feedback is. And we are going to post the picture right there. Just installed my light bar. What do you think? Post. So I already know, well, I mean, we'll see, that a lot of people on the internet are either gonna call me a mall crawler just based on the fact that I installed a light bar. What they don't know is that this Jeep is nothing even close to a mall crawler. You know, we have 1-ton axles, 40s, bead locks. This thing has seen a lot of trails. Just because I installed a light bar, does that make me a mall crawler? We will see from the comments on Facebook. For now, I'm gonna go ahead and close out this video. Once it gets dark, we'll go hit the road. We'll see the light output, see if it makes any weird noises. We're gonna talk about all that later on tonight. See you guys. So last night I was able to get out and test the light bar, and let me tell you, this thing is extremely bright. I also quickly remembered why I personally do not like light bars. This thing makes so much noise. And let's talk about that. We're gonna go ahead and dive into the pros and cons of light bars and talk about why some people love them and why some people absolutely hate them. So I actually have a little list right here of the pros and cons, and we're gonna talk about if you need them. But first, remember how I made the Facebook post on about the light bar? It actually got a lot of good feedback. There were not many trolls at all. I'll throw a link to the Facebook post so you can go check it out, see what other people said. And I also posted it in JK Gear and Gadgets, the group. If you're not part of that, I'd suggest you join. There were a lot of great answers on there, and they weren't just like, oh, I love light bars. And they went into detail talking exactly why. And I was actually pretty happy with the outcome of the post. There wasn't a bunch of bashing. There were people that did not like them, but they voiced their reasoning very clearly. It wasn't, oh, they're a mall crawler. And I think that's kind of crazy, because many years ago, if you would have done a post like that, people would have tried to flame you. So either the hardcore wheelers that have their opinions, set in stone, are either not on those Facebook groups anymore. They're back on, Pirate 4x4 for those of you that have been around since then, or people just don't really care anymore. If it's not their style, they leave it be. So let's go ahead and dive on in to some of the things that are either good or bad about the light bar. So let's start off with the pros. Lots of light. Obviously, this amount of LEDs is going to put out a fantastic amount of light. So let me go ahead and play the clip that I took last night. This light bar really puts out a ton of light. There are no headlights on. This is all light bar. It is insane how bright this is. Lighting all the way up to the trees, all the way out, probably about 200 something feet, all the way here scattered around the sides. Let's come back here behind the tire. As you can tell, we have light output right beside of the tire, and then it just continues out. We'll go ahead and hit our low beams, adds right to it. Hit the high beams, goes out a little bit further. That is a ton of light. So as you can tell, it definitely puts out a ton of light everywhere. This is actually the same road that I was on last night, and it puts out so much light. And the great thing about it is that for the price of this thing, it puts out so much light. You can get a light bar anywhere from $100, or you can go all the way up to like $1,000. You don't need the most expensive light bar to put out a crazy amount of light. What I will say is that a more expensive light bar will put out light in different areas. This one that I'm actually running now kind of scatters it, more of like a flood pattern. Some of the more expensive lights are gonna direct it. It's gonna have, more of a spotlight in the middle, really shoot out the far distance, and then some more of the flood pattern out to the sides. Second up, easy install. I think this is what appeals to most of the new Jeep owners that install light bars. The install is really easy. For the most part, it's completely bolt-on. It gives your Jeep a new look. And for the most part, most of these light bars are gonna come with a wiring harness that makes it foolproof for wiring. Third, affordable. You can get a light bar set up like this for less than $200. Brackets around $40. You can find light bars all day long for under $100, maybe a little bit more. But this is an extremely cheap upgrade if you go with Amazon stuff. Now, once you start moving to rigid or other high-end LED lights, the price goes way up. off-road look. Personally, I do like the look of a Lightbar on a well-built rig. And no, I'm not tooting my own horn, but I think it kind of just flows with it. It makes it look like kind of, you know, like a go fast off-road expedition rig. Not expedition, but like, man, this thing is gonna storm through some stuff. And the last pro, I mean, it's not the only pro, but the last on my list is A-pillar protection. So these are not going to protect you from extremely hard hits, but it is going to offer some type of protection. Now, for those of you that have been subscribed for a while, you probably remember that I've actually shown my pillar damage that's hidden right behind here. Well, you might be able to kind of pry it out of the way, but you can see the scratch marks there. There's a little dent under here. That was from running Crucible Trail at Rouse Creek, put it up against a tree, small little dent, no big deal. But I'm kind of curious if having this bracket on would have prevented it from actually denting into the windshield frame. I don't know. It's definitely not going to hurt. So yes, this can offer some type of body protection. Not much though, probably not much. So that is a list of pros to Lightbars in my opinion. There's probably a lot more, and to some of those things, some people might not even care about. Let's dive into the cons. These aren't really in any order, but it's just stuff I came up with off the top of my head. Glare. When you have a light mounted on the roofline, naturally it is gonna put a glare right here on your hood and possibly on your windshield, which can be pretty distracting at night when we're trying to get the most vision that we can actually see. When we're sitting in the driver's seat and there's a bad glare coming off the hood or the windshield, that's really gonna defeat the purpose when we wanna see it as far out as we can. Different light bars are gonna have different outcomes with glare. So the more expensive ones are really gonna push light as far as they go out before dropping down to the ground, where some of these Amazon ones are gonna definitely glare the hood up pretty bad. It's also going to be dependent on where you mount your light bar. Of course, up top there, we're going to get a lot more hood glare than if we mount some light bars down here on the bumper. Number two, they blind others. And I am not talking about on the road. I am talking about on the trail when we have a Jeep here, a couple Jeeps in front of us, a couple Jeeps behind us. If you're in the front, there's nothing wrong with lighting up the entire thing so you can see and the people behind you can see. The issue is when you're on a trail ride with multiple rigs, and let's suppose the guy behind me has his light bar on, that is gonna blind me completely. The entire inside of the Jeep fills up with light. It actually reflects off my windshield into my eyes. If you are on a group trail ride and there's somebody in front of you, do not turn on a light bar. It is horrible. If I'm on a trail ride and somebody behind me has a light bar on, I will stop and make sure they turn it off because it's blinding. These things are so bright. Number three, everybody's big complaint is noise. So most of the cheaper Amazon light bars are going to make a ton of wind noise. Let me go ahead and upload that noise clip right now. So as you can tell, that is extremely, extremely loud. And a lot of that has to do with the design of the light bar. There's fins behind here for proper cooling, so these LEDs don't get way too hot. And secondly, a lot of it's gonna have to do with the mount. So as you can tell, this mount pushes the light bar way out there, and it's not really designed to work together, so there's no telling how this windshield flow, the airflow coming up, is gonna react with those fins in the back. Some of the more expensive light bar mounts and light bars are designed to work together and kind of minimize that noise. There are a few solutions. Some people will go ahead and put RTV on the back of these fins to quiet it down. They also sell these little rubber inserts that slide in the fins. That is another option, however, it's kind of cheesy. The third option is to get a product from Aerolids. We're gonna install this, and I will say it does work. I've seen other people's Jeeps with them and it does quiet it down. All this is a plastic sleeve that actually slides over our light bar and makes it so much more aerodynamic and prevents all that wind noise. So we're actually gonna install this here in a minute, and this is gonna offer a few other pros to it. We'll get back to that. Number four for a con is price. Not the Amazon ones, but the more expensive rigids or some of the really high-end models, up in the $6,000 to $1,000 range, and they go even higher than that. Now that's gonna be for a decent one. However, in my opinion, if you really do wanna keep a light bar, go for a nice high-end model to kind of get rid of these other cons. Another bad con about the price is that they appeal, the cheap ones, they really appeal to new Jeep owners, and I think that's why it's one of the most popular mods. The next really big one, in my opinion, is the state laws. There are a lot of states that actually require you to keep your light bar covered at all times when on the road. That kind of defeats the purpose of having a light bar, especially if you want to turn it on back roads like this. If you're looking out for deer or other animals, you're not going to get out and pull that cover off. So check with your state laws before you actually upgrade to a light bar. And they can look cheesy. On a stock Jeep or pretty unmodified rig, I think they look a little bit out of place. Once again, that's my opinion. It's your Jeep. Do whatever mods you want to it. I'm just not a fan. Let's think about when you're actually going to need a light bar. Some of those times when you will need a light bar, or it would definitely help, is if you're off-roading in a really open distance and you're going pretty fast. So if you're out in the desert, or if you're just on some trails when you can actually get up to a good amount of speed and you're wheeling at night. So you need that light that really shines out in the distance so you can go fast and still be safe. Another opportunity where a light bar might be nice is if you're really doing some crazy rock crawling at night. So you're going out for a trail ride at night and you're in the lead, you want to pick the best line, you have a bunch of rocks in front of you. A light bar is going to help you pick that line and definitely put out the maximum amount of light. It's kind of crazy to think that you need a light bar to go rock crawling. You don't need it, but I could see where it would help in some certain circumstances. All right, what else do we have here? Maybe you just want the look. That's a big thing when it comes to Jeeps. You accessorize it how you like and what you think looks good. And should you do other upgrades first? Personally, I think yes. I do not think a light bar should be one of your first upgrades. If you do want to go off-road, there's definitely a lot of other upgrades that you should do before lighting is even an issue. So a good set of headlights, some auxiliary lights, anything else will put out a decent amount of light for any of your nighttime off-roading needs. Light bars, they do help. They put out a lot of light, but do you actually need them to start hitting the trails? No. So let's go ahead and talk about the whole mall crawler theme. Does me putting a light bar on my Jeep turn it into a mall crawler? I don't think so, and I think it actually looks pretty good. The issue is with any other mod that starts off with a racing development or high-end off-roading, it kind of trickles down to the average person, and that average person does it for looks. I think that's where the whole kind of mall crawler theme for light bars came from. No, just because you put a light bar in your Jeep, you're not a mall crawler, but you will always get those people that call your Jeep a mall crawler if you have mods that you don't use. So honestly, does it really matter? No. I do not think that the off-road community should be calling people mall crawlers. Everybody has their own opinion on what mods they want to do. You know, I could put 44s on my Jeep, and if I never use them, who cares? It's my Jeep, I pay for it. Doesn't really matter. We're not going to dive into the whole mall crawler thing. If you have a comment or, you know, what you think the stigma came from, let me know in the comments. I'd like to hear your opinion. But we've been talking for a while now. Let's actually hop back in some action and install this Aero Lids cover. See if it quiets it down. And we're also going to talk about another awesome thing about this, other than just making the light bar quiet. Aero Lids actually sells inserts that go behind here. That does two things. Let's get this on and let's talk about it. Boom, just like that. Pretty easy to put on, and as you can tell, it really doesn't take away too much from the look of it. You know, see what it looks like here from the side. You could definitely see it, but if it's going to quiet down that light bar, it's going to be worth it, especially if you really like the look of a light bar. You don't want to spend the extreme amount of money on a nice one, and you want it to be quiet. So we're going to go ahead and rip this off and install an insert to see if it would kind of get away with being a cover. So let me rip this off. I got a nice American flag insert because America. And I do not think I'm going to be keeping this light bar on for too long. I figured we might as well go with something fun and unique. The inserts, all they do is slide right on inside the front half of our cover. They have a bunch of different inserts. I like the way this one looked, and I thought it was actually pretty cool. You know, why not? So with our insert installed, go ahead and put this right back on. That is pretty sweet. Definitely pretty cool. So I think most states that require a cover, I think you'd get away with this. I don't think a cop's gonna pull you over because it doesn't look transparent. It looks like a cover. Does it actually block all the light? Let's test it out. So it does block most of the light. It's a cover, it's an insert. However, it actually looks pretty cool when it's on. That's pretty cool. You can see it lit up. Could you get away with driving with that on during the day on the road? Probably so, because as you can tell, it's not bright at all. It just kind of lights up the American flag. That is pretty cool. So we talked a lot in this video. I know it's been a pretty boring video. If you're still here, thanks for watching. Last thing we're gonna do is drive around, test this out, and make sure this killed all the wind noise. They do on other light bars that I've driven in Jeeps with, but we gotta make sure for the sake of the video. So what's next on the channel, guys? No, we're not doing a bunch of, light bar upgrades and all that stuff. I just wanted to make this video because I've noticed a lot of people on different Facebook groups and Jeep pages have been asking a lot of questions about light bars, and I figured this would be a good video to make to kind of help you decide if you want a light bar. Yes, they are extremely bright, they are pretty cool, and they do put out a lot of light, but there's a lot of other things to think about before you switch to a light bar. Let's go hit the road. But before we do that, because that's going to close out the video, what's next on the channel? I actually have some nice fancy shocks sitting at home ready to be installed, and it is time to start up the DIY 3-link video series. Have all that parts at home. I don't want to show you guys because it's a secret. Stay tuned. Like always, smash this thumbs up button. Let me know in the comments how you feel about light bars. And of course, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more videos. I'm gonna head home, and most importantly, let's make sure that this aero lids insert kills the noise completely. All right, guys, the aero lids definitely did work. There's no more light bar whistle. We're going 50 miles an hour, which before was unbearable with the light bar. So it definitely works. Now, I know I did not actually get to talk about the whole stigma of being a mall crawler just because you have a light bar. I don't really want to talk about that because honestly, it's your Jeep. Do whatever you want with it. And just because you bolt a light bar into your Jeep does not make you a mall crawler. My recommendation though is to think about the pros and cons and to think if you're actually going to use a light bar before you buy it. Don't buy it just for the sake of having it. I mean, if you really want to, go for it. But there's a lot of pros and there's a lot of cons to light bars, and not everybody needs a light bar. Before you spend your money on a light bar, think about where else that money could go for modifications on your Jeep. Something that might actually help you off-road or help your Jeep perform a little better. Thanks for watching, guys. See ya.